All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of Ready or Not on the Barker Media Network. I'm your host, Chris Ferera, and we have another awesome reaction show in store for you today. I'm rejoined by Michael Barneau of the Barker, and we're going to touch on these next two episodes, episodes 5 and 6 of The Last Dance. This is kind of becoming a little bit of a ritual on Sunday nights. We watch this documentary, and we talk about it. Mike,
and we have to immediately give a response.
We immediately have to give a response because this is, as we were talking before, some of the best documentary filmmaking that we've ever seen.
100%. I said it last week and I maintain it. Like this documentary continues to impress and exceed expectations.
Yep. Last week we talked a lot about Dennis Rodman and Jordan's first championship over the Lakers. And tonight's two episodes, we finally get to. I loved tonight's two episodes because we finally got to see behind the curtain of the mystical Michael Jordan, and we got to see a little bit of the darker, dirty side of Jordan.
Yeah, we did. We saw he got involved with a shady character, and he was revealed some of his gambling hobbies, which he explained it really well. And I can't remember the quote. I think you wrote it down.
Yeah, the quote. The quote we might as well say it right now because gambling was a big theme in these two episodes. But he said, "I don't have a problem with gambling," because the media was coming after him hardcore in '93, saying he had all these off-court issues and everything because he would sneak away and gamble. And the documentary goes to tell us, like, look, this is big money he's gambling, but to Michael, it's not big money. It's to us, it would be like $10 to Michael.
Right. $10,000 to Michael Jordan is $10 to us.
But Michael says one of the best lines I've ever heard about gambling, where he says, "I don't have a problem with gambling. I have a competition problem. I'm too competitive."
And the way he explained it really helped. Like those of us who might do some hobby gambling on a sport or whatever the case might be, it doesn't mean you have necessarily a gambling problem. And he outlined perfectly what the difference is. If you have it as a hobby, you only bet what you can afford to lose just because you find it fun. If you have a problem, you're a hobo, you're living on the street, you're gambling what you can't afford to lose, that's a problem. So I feel like, especially in today's age, like with sports gambling becoming more prevalent, and we're going to see more and more of it legalized throughout the states, I think some of that stigma is going to be removed, and people should explain better what the difference is. Like some of us enjoy it, and in a healthy way, I think.
Yeah, well, and it's funny looking at it through the lens of 2020. We look at it, and Jordan, going into this documentary, thought, people are going to look at me as a villain, and we're watching it thinking, the way gambling is viewed now versus when it was viewed in the 80s and 90s, it's totally different. It's becoming less of a villainized act. But it does destroy a lot of people's lives. But like Jordan said, I wouldn't be married. I wouldn't be able to have my house. I wouldn't be able to have all these things if it really was that destructive for me.
Well, it's just like anything else. Some personalities don't do well with these things. Some personalities don't handle alcohol well. Some personalities should not gamble because if you don't have self-control, then you shouldn't do it. And Jordan was explaining that he has self-control. If he didn't, like you said, he wouldn't be able to have the life he has, all the things he has, the wife, and all the rest of it. So,
plus
it can be done in a healthy way.
He goes into explaining that what the media loved to blow out of proportion and say that he was selfish and stuff, it was a way that Jordan was able to refocus when things were going wrong. That was his little niche, whereas other people, go work out and do stuff. Like Michael could go out and golf 36 holes, smoke an entire cigar, and gamble all night, and it wouldn't affect him when he got on the court.
If it did, it didn't look like it. But he was but it's like they said, like once you've had an amount of success, people are going to dig and try to find dirt. And that's sort of what happened with that book written by Sam Spence, who was that reporter went behind the scenes and dug up some of the dirt. And he told some of those stories about Jordan that, to be quite frankly, I mean, I'm sure that sort of thing happens with a lot of people, but that's his nature. He's ultra competitive that way. But I don't know if that was necessarily the aim or the goal of the book, but it revealed some of the darker side. to
Well, yeah,
Michael Jordan.
they talk about it in the doc that everything up until that point was, the Coca-Cola, Mickey Mouse, McDonald's, Michael Jordan,
Right.
and
They wanted dirt.
they wanted it. And even it seemed like Jordan didn't even mind it. In his interviews, he kind of said, I was okay with it because it kind of showed this more human side to him. Because he even goes to say another quote that I thought was amazing for him, and it's at the end of the documentary, but he says, if I could go back, I would not want to be a role model. I don't want that responsibility. I just want to play basketball.
Right. That stuck out to me. That stuck out to me also. I'm not sure I was prepared to hear that. I really didn't. I really didn't, because you think of Michael Jordan, honestly, he's one of the cleanest role models I can think of that we've had in sports in the last several decades. And I don't know many people who handled the spotlight better. You watch how he conducts himself and in all that time, like where he's just mobbed by people. How old would that get? I'm sure that would be cool for about a month, maybe a couple weeks, but imagine having to deal with that every time you go anywhere. And he talks about it's like a prison for him being in that hotel room, because this is the only place he can be where he's not just mobbed.
And I even laughed when he said that, because I'm like, even in this moment when you're relaxed smoking a cigar on your couch, you have cameras in your face and there are reporters in there.
Right. Even now he's not alone. It's just I don't even know how he's that relaxed just sitting on the couch. Of course, he's been in front of a camera most of his
I loved
career.
how the documentary kind of portrayed that. The beginning of the second episode, where it shows that he's doing that interview, and they do the beginning of that interview like 4 or 5 different takes of that dolly tracking around, and he says relatively the same thing every time, but he keeps saying, like, most people want to be Michael Jordan, but you can't get a real accurate depiction of Michael Jordan in just a day or even a week. Come live in my shoes for a year and see what it would be like. And then we get to see just the mobs. I mean, anywhere he was walking, he couldn't do anything.
It was there when he leaves the hotel room. It's there when he goes to the lobby. Once he leaves the building, when he gets to the court, once he leaves the locker room, it's everywhere. I don't know how he dealt with it. I'd love to see some of the times he freaked out, because I guarantee he did.
Oh yeah,
a couple times.
Had to have. But yeah, so these 2 episodes, I think, did a really good job of showing us behind the curtain and stuff. Again, it also goes in and tells us some awesome more basketball stories. The documentary starts off with that 1998 All-Star game, which was kind of like a beginning passing of the torch, where we get to see in memoriam for Kobe Bryant, and we get to see him and Kobe go shot for shot. I loved seeing the cameras in the locker room and them talking like about a young 19-year-old Kobe Bryant, saying like, this guy's just like, he just wants to go one-on-one with you every time. Like, he just like, he's trying to kill us out there. This kid just wants to keep going. I thought it was really cool, especially getting to see the interview of Kobe Bryant where Kobe's talking about Michael, with us knowing, what happened a couple months ago.
It hit different, didn't it? Like when you saw him, like when I saw him, like I realized, like, oh man, he was alive when they filmed this.
Yeah.
And it was just like, yeah. And the thing is, like, I'm not even a Kobe fan. Like, I don't follow basketball like that. So that's not what it means. Like, I liked Kobe, but I wasn't like a fan. Even I was just like, man, it feels weird seeing him.
Yeah.
Knowing what happened. But
well, you didn't grow up in Southern California like me, so it was like a total different attachment. You look at him more as just like the basketball player, and you can appreciate the athlete that he was.
He's an icon to me, but like, I don't have a personal thing at all, like attachment to the role model, like someone who grew up in Southern Cal like you did.
Yeah. But it was so cool to see Jordan kind of talk about this young kid and seeing a lot of the similarities in him. The documentary also dives into where Michael became this iconic, not just basketball player, but just icon in the world. As we talked about, one of the books that's right behind me, Playing for Keeps, so we got to read about just the business side of the Jordan brand. And we get to go into the documentary and talk about the shoe deal and how he went away from what the traditional NBA was doing with Converse and Reebok and a smaller company that really was not known, which is funny to think that Nike at that point wasn't the big player, and they offered a rookie $250,000. My God, a rookie.
Wasn't it? Well, hold on. What, didn't they expect to make $3 million?
Yeah.
In the first year, and then they made $125 million. Was it?
Yep. And
like something just insane
and
blew through the expectations.
To this date, they have made $50 billion off of that deal. And think of how stupid Converse and Reebok probably feel right now.
You know, what's funny with the Reebok thing, how cool is that story about how he covered up the Reebok uh, symbol with the American flag.
Yeah,
How neat was that?
on the 92 Dream Team after
Yeah.
they won the Redeem Team when they won gold, and he didn't want to be caught wearing Reebok stuff at the gold medal ceremony, so he covered it with the American flag. I was wondering how he's going to do it. I'm like, is he going to put tape or something there? Because that'll look bad. But he actually slyly, by putting the flag there, he could play it off like, oh, I just had the flag.
Well, that's the thing. It's like he said even before, he's like, "Oh, I got something for you," and I'm just sitting here like, "Oh, what'd he do?" You know? And so he played it off so cool. I wonder, like, I guarantee nobody knew. I guarantee the only people that knew that had to have been like reporters and people like that. Like everyone else had to be totally in the dark. Like,
yeah. I loved that 92 Dream Team stuff. Not only getting to see the competitive, practices between all, the best players in the world, Barkley and Magic and Bird, and there was kind of like where they said Jordan became the best player in the world, because before that it was a Bird and Magic's league. I wrote down, I'm like, poor Tony Kukoc, man. They just destroyed him, and it wasn't even his fault that Jerry Krause goes and drafts him, and then Pippen's pissed because they're prioritizing this Croatian kid and want to give him money, and then Jordan and him just destroy him in that first game.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's like he said in the interview. They interviewed what's his name again? Kukoc. Yeah, they interviewed him, and he even said, like, I've never met these guys. They don't know me. They know nothing about me. But that wasn't what it was about. I was like, this was a personal beef. It was more about Jerry Krause, and the inner workings of the Bulls organization, that just a perfect storm led to him getting meleed out there.
But he was able to prove his own a little bit in that title game when they played a second time.
He did. He bounced back well in the title game and was able to play well. But that 92 Dream Team, we're talking icons in the history of basketball. They were all on that team. You think of basketball, the biggest names in basketball, Magic, Bird, Jordan, they're all on it. Barkley, Ewing. Really the only big ones I can think of outside of them that you were missing would probably be like Wilt Chamberlain, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar come to mind. But on that Dream Team, the most iconic people ever played the game of basketball, and that story that they tell about that really competitive pickup game, because this isn't just some pickup game. This is 10 like of the best in the world going at it. And they challenge Michael Jordan like that, and then like nobody talks. They get on the bus, no one's talking, everyone's so pissed. And finally, Magic leans over to who do you lean over to?
I think he leaned over to Barkley, yeah,
and said, we shouldn't have pissed off Jordan, or what?
Yeah, because they were kicking Jordan's ass and talking shit to him the entire practice, and they said Jordan scored like 9 points in like a matter of seconds. And led his team back, and they realized you just can't talk crap to Michael, otherwise you're going to lose.
Right, like you can't challenge a guy of his nature. He was one of those guys. If you make him mad, he's better. He's a lot better if you make him mad. So,
but that 92 Dream Team was so important, not only just for Jordan, but for the sport of basketball, because they talk about how that team not only was the first time that like big NBA stars played in the Olympics, because at that times before that, it was really just, the B squads that went over and played internationally. This was the first time they were bringing over the big guns to play and win gold. And it put basketball on the map internationally and allowed Jordan to become, I think, that iconic, worldwide star, not just the star in the United States.
Yeah, Michael Wilbon, I think, was the one who talked about how that elevated the game, basketball, that was a huge step for the game of basketball, was that 92 Dream Team, and how it made Michael Jordan not just a star in the United States, but he became a worldwide phenomenon. People everywhere, on every corner of the globe, suddenly knew who Michael Jordan was.
Yep. Right after that, because not only did he have, I love when they talked about how Nike had the strategy, or at least his agent had the strategy to market Michael as like a individual athlete, like a tennis player or something, rather than just how every basketball player had just been a team sport and branded that way. Whereas Michael was going to be, advertised individually, which probably is why there was a lot of rifts between the teams, but, financially made Michael so much money. And after that Dream Team, we see that I mean, I think everyone knows that iconic slogan, "Be like Mike," which went worldwide. And
Yeah.
I mean, because everyone said, "I want to be like Mike. I want to be like Mike."
And then here he is like, no, you don't.
Yeah, and then we get to see behind where he's like, "Look, you don't want to do what I
You
do."
don't want to do what I do. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. What is that saying? There's that saying that says everybody wants to be a beast until you got to do what the beasts do.
It's exactly how it goes. But like,
Mm-hmm.
I'll tell you the truth. We talked about this last time, how it's hard to maintain that level of competitiveness day in, day out and stuff like that. And even he talked, you're probably going to get to this in a little bit, but he spoke about how he became just fatigued by the whole thing, just mentally worn down by and just like you felt less joy after the championships were over and stuff, and more relief that it was over.
Yeah.
Got to that point for him. So you saw
it was
like
what we talked about last week when Rodman said that quote about, "You pay me to deal with all this other shit. Like I could play basketball for free." And it seemed like that was the same way kind of with Jordan. It was the celebrity that came with him was the thing that was draining on him. His relationship with the media was what was making this game. Not only did he have to deal with the Knicks and Barkley and all these competitive and hard-nosed teams on the court, then he'd have to get off the court and deal with the media.
Right. And it's Rodman put it very succinctly in that episode when he said that. It just, like I can imagine that playing on the court's the easy part after a while, especially because basketball is not a physically taxing sport quite in the way like a sport like football is, where guys are getting injured left and right, and it's just like a meat market and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But it's you see the circus that he had to deal with all the time, and yeah, you should get paid to deal with that.
And I think what we want to talk about too is the cool thing about this documentary is now I've always just thought, it was all everybody else's fault and not Michael. Michael's the greatest ever and he had no issues, but we got to see that some of these problems were his doing. Like they go in and talk about how that election in North Carolina and everyone was, wanting him to back that Democrat from the South, who was going to be one of the first African Americans down there. And he was going up against like a devout, racist Republican who wanted to like get rid of Martin Luther King Day.
Right.
And Michael had said like, look, I thought it was really good what he said. He's like, you can write him a check, give him my campaign dollars. But the media spun it as you don't want to be like Ali. You just would rather enjoy your celebrity, enjoy your money, and not get into the social issues, which Michael said, I'm a basketball player. I'm not a politician. I don't want to deal with this stuff.
Well, I'm not an activist,
Yeah.
Like that's the route he went. I think that's kind of old school of him. He left politics out of it. He refused to take a side because, and he said like Republicans buy sneakers too.
Yep.
But I don't know that he didn't think about it and really he didn't really think hard about it and really give that answer. He just didn't want to get in the middle of it. He's already dealing with enough. He doesn't need to get entered into the middle of a political fray, which, I mean, as we can see now with politics, it can be poisonous and it can ruin things and totally polarize your fan base and hurt the companies he works for and stuff. Like you look at what's happened recently with the NBA and China, people spoke out against the Chinese government and stuff, knowing that China gives a great finance. There's a lot of money tied up in this. And it's like, well, where do we draw the line between your free speech and what affects the bottom line of the company and stuff like that? And I think it's something that you should consider whenever you're doing something, when it's not just you on the line.
Mm-hmm.
But Michael Jordan might have been in different shoes for this, but I understand why he didn't do it. And to be honest with you, I don't think it was a bad thing for him not to say something. It would have been better, I think, for that Democratic nominee to win. But I understand why Michael didn't want to get involved with already up on his plate.
I didn't like that they were like, it almost made it seem like, oh, it was Michael's fault that dude lost. And I'm like, well, just because he didn't back him, I mean, maybe run a better campaign and everything. I mean, I don't know if then again, it's Michael Jordan. So maybe by him standing up and saying that would have held a lot of weight in terms of that election. But that's not fair for Michael. I know I know we put a lot on celebrities to be more than what they are. But we live in a day and age now, specifically when people do it, you know, it's, you're either going to be right or get killed. And Michael probably had to weigh those options knowing the empire that he had on his shoulders.
Yeah. And that, like with that, with dealing with what he was dealing with, and now we throw a political campaign into the mix of things. Like, would he have won if Michael had come out and endorsed him? Possibly. You know, I'd have to look closely at the campaign, how it was run, what were the issues of the time. Like, these are all questions that we can look at now and say things, but you had to be there at the time to understand context. Where were they in history? What had happened? Different dynamics come into play that we can't possibly know about without studying. So, I mean, I don't blame Michael Jordan for doing what he did. Barack Obama came on and said something like, we want people to take a stand and stuff. And I really do. I'm a huge Barack Obama fan, by the way. I thought he was a fantastic speaker, if nothing else. Whether you agreed with his policies or not, Barack Obama was an incredible person. And
an amazing orator.
Yeah, very good. And so I understand where he was coming from, but I also I agree with Michael Jordan's decision to not get involved.
Yeah, and just be the athlete. And again, when you say something like Republicans buy sneakers too, of course you know that that's going to come with a lot of criticism and heat. And it was kind of like at that point too, after they win their second title over the Trailblazers, that's when, as we talked about earlier, these books and articles started coming out where it was like, okay, well, if Michael doesn't want to be this perfect thing and be like Ali, we need to come out and, you know, poke at him a little. And that's when they write the Jordan Rules book. And meanwhile, they're going for their third title. They're going for the three-peat, which already is exhausting on athletes, as you see when you have to go that deep into a season many years in a row. And then they were facing their toughest obstacle since that Pistons team. They played the Knicks, which were basically a remodeling of that Pistons team, very physical with Patrick Ewing and stuff. And then you stack on top of the gambling stuff that's coming out, the fact that they're losing, everything that's going on in his life. And I just loved how he responded to that. Like how they tell the story that he goes to Atlantic City to just get away. He gets crushed for it. And what happens after they're down 2-0 to the Knicks? They win 4 in a row and just kick the shit out of the Knicks.
Right.
And then they get to this is why I just love Jordan. Everything is personal to him. They get to the finals that year to play Charles Barkley, who won the MVP, and he's still pissed about that. He's pissed that he didn't get to win MVP, that Barkley won MVP. And then this is my favorite part. The Suns had a player named Dan Marley, who was supposedly touted as a great defender. Right. And what he says about Marley, because Krause liked Marley, he wanted to go at Marley.
Right, and he said because Krause believed that Marley was a great defensive player, and he said, no, he's not. I'm about to prove it. And about Barkley, when Barkley won the most valuable player ahead of him, he said, well, you won that, I'll win this. You know, the bigger deal, which, again, who the hell remembers that Charles Barkley was league MVP? I don't. Yeah. You know, all I know is that the Bulls won however many championships they did. The fact is, all those things like that are insignificant in the grand scheme because we don't remember them, really. I mean, the only people who remember it are going to be people who are really fans of that sport. But we all know who won the championship.
Yep. I love when Jordan, after they lose Game 5 at home, I love what Jordan said. Yeah. I mean, it's just his mentality when he's getting on the airplane and then they're going back to Phoenix, and he tells the guys that he's only packing one suit because he guarantees they're going to win Game 6 and they ain't going to play a 7th game. And what does he do? He just – They were actually losing in that game. They were down 4 with like 30 seconds left. Yep.
And who does he find? Who do they find to win the game yet again?
Paxson.
It's the one white guy on the court. Yeah. He did it against the Lakers early on, and then he did it again against the Suns. I thought that was crazy. And I loved what he said. He's like, I wasn't supposed to have the ball.
Yep.
And he was the only one, by the way, who scored in that fourth quarter outside of Michael Jordan on the Bulls team. That is nuts. For 12 minutes, you're the only one that scored?
You could tell he was not supposed to get the ball because there wasn't a Sun player within like 20 feet of him.
Forgotten man. Easy bucket. Easy
Easy
bucket.
bucket. Michael ends up averaging 41 points in that finals, which to this day is the most all time for an average in an NBA finals. Only two other players had averaged 40, which was Rick Barry and Elgin Baylor, but Michael still to this day holds that record. And Barkley in the post show talked about just like, I mean, I was at my best. I won MVP. I was at the peak of my powers. And it just, I ran up against Michael Jordan. Like, I was just in the wrong time.
Right. He said, he said that it was the only time in his life that he went up against, he was on the court and he didn't believe he was the best one on it. That he believed that there's someone better than me on this basketball court. It was the only time Barkley said that. By the way, when I was younger, I didn't like Charles Barkley.
Mm-hmm.
He's actually grown on me. And this documentary, I like him even more.
Oh, yeah.
After watching, because I liked his competitive attitude. I loved what he said to the Bulls fans after they basically were celebrating already with a 3-1 lead in the series. And he was like, take that shit down.
Yep.
after they won.
They were all ready for their parade, and they had stuff on all the city windows and everything.
Yeah, and it was – so I actually like Barkley.
I've had a lot more respect to him because, we just see him as, the fat guy sitting next to Shaq on TNT and them just bickering. But when you watch him, and it's made me lose some respect for Draymond Green of the Warriors, who talks a lot of shit on him and says, like, I'm a better player than Barkley. And it's like, look, Draymond, you won a couple championships with Steph and Clay, but Barkley was a league MVP. And we see these highlights like, dude, he was a bad dude. He was so good.
Okay, all right. I know enough basketball to speak on this.
Yeah.
Barkley was an offensive player. He could score 30, 40 points if he had to. He could do it. Draymond Green can't do that. And that is why there's not a comparison here. And here's the other thing. Barkley carried his teams with the Suns. He was the highlight. He was the highlight. He's the guy. Draymond Green is number 3 or 4 with the Golden State, depending on when Durant was there. He's the 4th guy you think about. And on offense, hell, teams would just leave him open. I remember that. So it's like, that's ridiculous. That Draymond Green saying that about Barkley, he has no case. Honestly.
I know. No case at all. But yeah, so again, this is we're 6 episodes in now, and now we're getting to see, the first 4 episodes were a lot of building him up, and it seems like these last 2 have really humanized him. We've kind of gotten to see how the media became almost as much of a motivating factor for him as his opponents, and he wanted to prove the media wrong. And I'm really excited for these last 2 weekends and these last 4 episodes to see, because this episode ended with him saying he's not sure if he'll miss playing basketball. And I believe next week we're going to dive into the retirement and him leaving and shocking the world because of what was weighing on him, as you were talking about.
Mm-hmm. Well, with Jordan, another thing to consider about, remember when before this thing came out, he said, I'm worried how this is going to affect my image or what people will think about me, which we still have 4 episodes to go. So like I said, we haven't seen everything yet. Yeah. So maybe it's too early to make a judgment, but and we saw some dirt, we saw some stuff, like we saw some of the dark side about what went on and stuff. But to be honest, through 6 episodes, I'm like, if anything, his legacy has only grown.
Yeah.
I have no clue. I already knew he was great, but holy cow, like this documentary is making you look like a god. So I'm excited too.
You can have that attitude when you have the results that he has. If he had been like a nobody and not won any, like he says it in the documentary, if I would have averaged 2 points and 3 rebounds, no one would have give a damn about me or anything. And we wouldn't give it anything. We wouldn't care about him at all. We would think he's an asshole. The fact that he came out there and produced, and it's like you said, it is added to the mythology of him. The fact that he could go out and live like he lived and do the things he did that no like mortal person could do, and then walk on a court and then also do what no mortal could do.
Yeah.
Just makes him, how can you not like the guy? Unless, I guess, if you're a Knicks fan.
Right. Yeah, if you're a Knicks fan, you probably don't like him. But there's I would like to share a quick story. Speaking of mythology, this is a story about Barkley, actually. Apparently, Charles Barkley ordered a pizza during warmups, had the pizza delivered to the floor while he was shooting around. Throughout the course of warmups, he ate that whole pizza and scored 40 points that night.
Wow.
According to mythology. That's the story. That's what I've been told.
It makes it no wonder that story hits true to you. You love yourself some food. And
I was going to say, sounds like something I do.
Exactly.
And speaking of that, I just ate a whole pizza for my last video.
I know, it was a great one. The great thing about this documentary too, there's not a lot of losers in this. The only real loser that I'm seeing right now is Jerry Krause, who they keep dumping on. Everyone that they show seems to be, their status keeps getting elevated. Even the opponents that he's playing, like we said with Barkley, I now like Barkley more watching this episode. I like Rodman. I like Bill. Scotty maybe. Scotty also maybe took a step back for me because we got to see that Scotty really became the player he was because of Michael.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think you're leaving out one loser here, and that's Isaiah Thomas. I think Isaiah Thomas comes out of this looking pretty bad. I'll be honest, I don't like the guy, just from what I've seen and what I've heard and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not to do with any of the opinion outside of the documentary. I haven't listened to any of the commentary on him outside of it. I'm going strictly off what I've watched.
Yeah.
Because I don't know him. I know they say he was good, and I'm sure he was, but I think he comes out of this looking pretty bad.
Yeah, I think a lot of people already had that image of him, but it is true with what we've seen. And of course, this being a Jordan doc, and we even in this episode get to see that Isaiah, who was one of easily the top 10 players in the NBA, gets shafted and left off of the Dream Team roster because Jordan didn't want him to screw the chemistry up.
Yeah, because they all hate him.
Mm-hmm.
None of them like him. And Jordan knew that. And so, he said, like, look, you can blame me for it if you want. You can blame me. But the fact is, it was everybody. It was a decision made by everybody. And he'd take the hit. But the reality is none of those other guys wanted him on that team. And he knew, it's like, look, his talent's undeniable. Respect the game. But he's going to screw up this team if we put him on it. Yep. So, they make that call. And Jordan bears the brunt, but it wasn't all his idea.
It's true. But yeah, 6 episodes down. Great series. I want to give a quick shout out to whoever is the sound editor and the music editor for this thing.
Yes.
The music that they are putting into this show. Like this last 2 episodes, you got Tribe Called Quest, Outkast, Black Sheep, Biggie, and Diddy, Shook Ones by Mobb Deep. The music that's playing in this thing is just making me like, I want to stand up and run through a wall and go straight to the gym and start working out.
Even the music that's not trademarked by an artist, like even the regular music that we keep hearing repeatedly is awesome.
Yeah,
honestly, that's my favorite part in the music part. Like I love the music they're using. So yeah, I'm 6 episodes through. I've loved what I've seen. Again, I can't thank you enough for getting this documentary on my radar because I don't watch TV. If it's not football season, I'm not watching TV. I don't watch ESPN at all. Outside of it, unless it's March Madness. So thanks for getting me on this, and I'm excited for these next 4 episodes and can't wait to do this again next week.
Definitely, man. Everybody, hope you guys are enjoying. Catch up on these. I hope you enjoy listening to this. Check out all the other stuff on the Barker. Mike just ate a huge pizza and some breadsticks, so you'll check out that, and we'll have some other fun stuff coming out this week. Hope you guys have a great rest of your week. Thanks for tuning into this episode of Ready or Not. Peace out, everybody.